Hi, my name is Nick Pimlott. I'm a family physician in Toronto, a family physician researcher, and for the last 5 years, the editor of Canadian Family Physician. And I actually only ever met Ian McWhinney once, and that was very briefly at Family Medicine Forum after I'd just taken on the role as the editor at CFP. I didn't really get a chance to talk to Ian, just to shake his hand and tell him how much his work and his writing had influenced my career. The time before that, I saw him give a talk. It would have been in the late 1990s. And I think it was not long after he'd given the William Pickles Memorial Lecture. And I can't really remember the content of that talk, but a couple of things sort of stand out. The first is that he stood at the front in his tweed jacket with an overhead projector and an acetate and a pen. And I think he drew a figure. And he may have been talking about the ways in which family medicine or generalist practice is different than specialty practice. The other thing I remember, though, is that people were kind of looking around and looking a bit confused. Who was this high-powered guy in family medicine, not using PowerPoint, using a simple acetate sheet? And what really struck me was that this person with this big reputation as an intellectual giant in family medicine presented himself and his ideas with such humility. Ian's influenced me in a couple of very big ways. The first is that before I became a physician, I was a bench scientist who knew a great deal about a very small area of knowledge in my discipline. And when the time came to choose family medicine as a career, I was quite uncertain. And it was through reading Ian's writings in my residency and early in my career that I became much more firmly convinced that I'd made the right career choice. And then the second big way that he's influenced me is in my role as the editor at Canadian Family Physician. Ian was a clinician, an astute clinical observer, a researcher, and a philosopher in our discipline. And to me, he was kind of in a great tradition, the tradition of people like James Parkinson, who was a GP in rural England who first described Parkinson's disease, or James Mackenzie, another GP in that great tradition. And he's influenced the way I think about family medicine research. We're in a great period in the history of family medicine research in that it's grown over the last 2 decades. We're competing with specialist researchers for grants and for publication in prestigious journals. And in the last decade of his career, Ian wrote about our research roots, and that our roots were in astute clinical observation, in observing case reports, in clinical discovery. And what I've tried to do over the last couple of years in my role at CFP is to revisit and provide a place for family physician clinicians working in clinical practice to participate in that great tradition of clinical observational research. Ian was quite unique in that he brought ideas about family medicine from philosophy, from the work of William James, from anthropology and the work of people like Jane Goodall. His writings and his ideas continue to enrich my practice and the way I think about our discipline.